The movie opens up in a science lab. Where Professor Stern was experimenting with his project, he got hungry and decided to take a break. He asks his partner, Professor Wan, to watch over his project machine, the atomic particle reactor. When he left, Professor Wan mistakenly spilled his drink on the science equipment, which caused a reaction in the atomic particle reactor as the portal expanded. Almost immediately, strange tentacles came out from the portal and grabbed Professor Wan into it. After a few years, at Green World School, the students showed up on stage to present their science project, but were all rejected by the judge as she called the project boring. A boy named Danny also shows up with his dog to present his project. Unlike the other student, Danny didn't have a partner. Danny's presentation was a nanobot he had invented to freeze and kill lice. He used the nanobot on his dog as the judge watched through a microscope. Although the presentation was nice, the judge also rejected it. The judge awarded Luis the winner even if his presentation was boring. Luis was her son. Danny felt cheated by the judge as he felt the prize was for the best scientist and not for Mama's boy. As he thought out loud, Luis heard him and asked his friends to beat Danny up. The boys chase after Danny as he runs with his dog into the bathroom to hide. The boys caught him. Just as they were about to beat Danny up, a woman saved him using her laser watch. She introduced herself as Ms. Evans, the principal at Cranston Academy, a secret boarding school for genius worldwide. She gave Danny a full scholarship to study in their school. She made Danny travel to the school in the imaginary world. Danny was impressed as he saw that his hero, Professor Edward, also graduated from the school. Danny accepted the offer. Excited, Ms. Evans told him they'd send a car to pick him up. The car arrived at Danny's home to pick him up. His father advised him to behave in his new school and not try out weird experiments. He hugged his parents and entered the car. Danny discovered that the car could fly and was controlled by a robot. After a while, they arrived at Cranston Academy. Ms. Evans showed Danny around. Entering the school hall, Danny met many geniuses working on their various scientific inventions. Later, they passed by an atomic particle reactor building. Ms. Evans explained that the building was damaged a long time ago. Danny was introduced to his class teacher, Professor Stern. Danny showed the class one of his nanobots. Professor Stern collected the nanobot and destroyed it. Professor Stern told Danny he was not a genius and was only offered a scholarship because Ms. Evans wanted to increase the school population. Danny walked to his seat and sat beside Liz, who told him not to get bothered by the teacher's words. They were discussing during class, and Professor Stern startled him, which made Danny lose his balance, scattering Liz's project. After class, a robot took Dan to the dormitory. On getting to his room, he discovered that Liz was his roommate. After many arguments, they both accepted each other as roommates. On the side of his wall, Danny pastes a photo of Professor Edward. He told Liz that Professor Edward was his hero. He began to say to her the many amazing things the man had done. He was surprised when Liz said the professor was her father. Amazed, Danny asked her to tell him more about Professor Edward, but Liz said it was late and bid him good night. The next morning, Liz woke up to see that Danny had fixed her project. When she got to class, she thanked Danny. But Danny said he had to do it because her snores were loud and didn't allow him to sleep at night. That day, Professor Stern gave them a test to solve. After the test was marked, Danny scored 99 and was very excited. But he discovered that 99 was the lowest mark as everyone scored 100. Professor Stern told him that his major project needed to be great work or he would be expelled. At night, Danny was thinking of something to work on, but Liz's snoring couldn't allow him. So he took a stroll to the atomic particle reactor building. He discovered that the building had been abandoned, as everywhere was dirty and dark. Scanning through the room, he decided to fix the atomic particle reactor and make it his school project. Danny started gathering things he would need to fix the machine, and every night, he worked on it. On the night he finished fixing it, Liz had secretly followed him. She told him that the place was off limits and that he could be punished if found there. He made her see why he had to fix it so he didn't get thrown out of the school. When he tried to switch the machine on, it couldn't come up as it wasn't connected. Liz helped him make the connection, and the atomic particle reactor was activated. The portal opened, and Danny decided to walk into the portal. He entered another realm and was chased around by scary monsters. Danny got scared and ran back into the lab. After he escaped, a four-armed, winged creature also came out of the portal and ran into the school. Liz disconnected the machine, and they both ran off to find the creature. When they saw him, they discovered he wasn't a monster. They walked up to talk to him and asked him many questions. He promised to answer their questions if they could get him food. They clothed him and took him to a restaurant. The creature turns out to be Professor Juan. He explained that he was a normal man and an engineer at Cranston Academy. He told them he got sucked into the portal to the fifth dimension. The land is full of so many strange, scary creatures. Later he got attacked by a four-armed moth who bit him on the neck, transforming him into a Mothman. All of a sudden, he cried, holding his head. He told them he has been suffering from a terrible headache and only gets relieved by taking a ghost pepper hot sauce he has prepared. Danny and Liz took Mothman to their room and asked him to remain quiet. In class, Danny told Professor Juan he would work with Liz on his science project, which was proof of a fifth dimension. While the class was on, Danny saw a Mothman by the window. Danny whispered to Liz, and they both excused themselves from the course and went to meet Mothman outside. They all went to the atomic particle reactor and discovered that the portal was back and had grown wider. A monster had come out of the portal and was attacking the school students at the computer lab. Danny advised that they go after the monster. Inside the computer lab, the monster chased after Danny and Liz, destroying the lab. Just as he was about to harm Danny, Mothman passed the bottle of hot sauce, and Danny poured it on the face of the monster, sending it away. Ms. Evans and Professor Stern walked into the computer lab. Danny explained to Ms. Evans how he had fixed the atomic particle reactor and had opened the portal to the fifth dimension. Professor Stern couldn't believe their story, as he had spent many years trying to fix the atomic particle reactor. Ms. Evans expelled Danny and Liz. They entered the car that would take them back home. But all of a sudden, a monster flew down and captured Ms. Evans. Danny and Liz both came down and ran after it. The monster carried Ms. Evans into the fifth dimension. Liz and Danny discovered that the portal had grown wider. A bigger monster came out, and just as it was about to attack them, Mothman flew to their front, and the beast ran off into the school. Danny, Liz, and Mothman stood in front of the portal when suddenly, Mothman grabbed them by their heads and wanted to throw them into the portal, but Danny poured a bit of the sauce into his mouth, and he became calm. Mothman explained that whenever he has that headache, a voice normally appears telling him things to do, but the hot sauce clears his mind. Danny, Liz, and Mothman were planning to go into the fifth dimension to destroy it. Mothman had told them the brain controlled the dimension and that they could close the portal by destroying the brain. As they were about to head to the portal, they discovered that monsters now surrounded the school. Liz told the other students that it was their duty as genius to protect their school from the monsters. The students agreed to help. They start by preparing a base that destroys a monster. Mothman distracted some other monsters, and Danny transformed a little rabbit into a large one who helped fight off monsters as the other students joined the rabbit in distracting the monsters. This allowed Danny, Liz, and Mothman to go to the portal. When they got to the portal, the Mothman was scared and refused to enter. Inside the fifth dimension, Danny was sad that Mothman had left them, but they kept walking. Suddenly, a monster took Danny's snack as he struggled. Mothman came to their rescue, fighting off the monster. Liz was happy he didn't abandon them. Mothman told them they were his family and couldn't leave them behind. He showed them the way. On the way, Danny got hungry and stopped to eat his snack. Liz turned back and shouted his name. The noise woke up the monsters. While running, a monster wanted to attack them, but the bracelet on Liz's arm saved them. Later, Liz saw that Ms. Evans was not dead but was held captive by a monster. The monster had almost everyone in the school as it kept them in a cave. Mothman explained that the monster was going to feed on their brains and other to grow stronger. He said they couldn't drag off the people in its possession, or they would die. They could only save them by going to the brain and shutting it off. It was dark, and the trio was tired. So, they decided to rest for the night. Liz and Juan slept while Danny stayed awake. He saw Liz covered in bugs and woke her up. All of a sudden, Mothman woke up with a headache. Danny took out the bottle of sauce, but it was finished. He threw the bottle at Mothman, returned to his senses, and asked the kids to stay away from him as the voice was trying to lead him into bringing them to the den. Liz tried telling him back to his senses, but a tentacle grabbed Mothman into the cave. Liz and Danny were sad, so they went in search of it. They traced the brain using the tentacles that grab humans as directions. They got to the walls of the brain but couldn't gain entrance as the membrane covering it. Danny was able to create an opening, and they both entered. Inside the brain, Danny and Liz could locate where the monster had taken all the captives to. Liz suggested they distract the monster by running to and fro. By doing this, they could tie them up, and the monster lost its grip on the captives. It turned its attention to Danny and Liz and chased after them. The monster grabbed Danny and was about to swallow him. When he dropped his nanobot on the brain, this made the brain freeze. All the people it had released came back to consciousness. They were happy Danny's invention had saved them. They noticed the portal was closing, and they had to leave the fifth dimension before it closed. The distance was far, and Liz lost hope of them making it out alive. But Ms. Evans activated the car and the robots. It took them out of the fifth dimension safely. But Juan was inside fighting the moth who had bitten him. The portal was about to close when he rushed out of the fifth dimension. On the award-winning day, Ms. Evans awarded Liz and Danny as the year's best students. That day, Danny met Professor Edward and was very excited. The movie closes with Danny, Liz, and Juan heading toward the atomic particle reactor building to find out if there is a sixth dimension.